How y'all doing this morning? My name is Zach. I'm a person in long-term recovery, and what that means for me is I haven't had a drink or a drug since February 17, 2017. Thank you. I grew up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. You guys please pray for our communities right now. We were ravaged by Hurricane Ida. A lot of people are without a home and been without power for days. So I currently reside in Shreveport, Louisiana. Where are my Shreveport people at? So today we're going to talk about what it's like being from the Gen Z generation and the Millennial generation in recovery and in Oxford houses. Hold on one second. So a Millennial, also known as a Generation Y or Gen Y, are the demographic cohort following Generation X and preceding Generation Z. Researchers in popular media use the early 1980s as the starting years and the mid-1990s to early 2000 as the ending birth years, with the generation typically being defined as people born from 1981 to 96. So I believe the boomer, it's not before that one. Raise your hand if you're a boomer. Cha-cha. No? So Generation Z, also known as the Zoomers, is the demographic cohort succeeding Millennials and preceding Generation Alpha. Researchers in popular media use the mid to late 90s as the starting birth years and the early 2010s as the ending birth years. So this panel will focus on younger people, Millennials and Gen Z in recovery, and discuss opportunities and obstacles that exist for that cohort. In the early days of Oxford House, most incoming residents were older and were addicted primarily to alcohol. Today, when drug addiction is more prevalent and addiction seems to occur soon, incoming residents tend to be younger. Both Oxford houses and the recovery community generally have adapted to this trend and seek to provide new opportunities for younger recovering individuals. While older and younger Oxford House residents have much in common, there are also some significant differences in interests and experiences. Both older and younger residents can learn from each other, but sometimes interests diverge. Many of the younger folks are more into social media, and many have started going back to complete their education, whether it be getting a GED or advanced degree. The panelists, all members of Gen X or Millennials, we're all Oxford House alumni or alumnus. We'll discuss these trends and talk about the resources they have found and the various opportunities available for Gen X and Millennial generations and those to follow. So me and the panelists discussed that we would try to focus on our experience as being a member of this, generation. Me personally, I got sober when I was 30, I guess. My house was mixed between people that we had members that were 60 and, members that were very young. And I kind of fit in the middle of that. It's great. I liked being with older members. It was good to be able to show them how to, work their phone and the TV remote and things like that. But there were obstacles there. I remember first, my roommate personally was 60-something years old, and he went to bed at 8, and I did not. I got up earlier than him and went to bed later every night, and I remember I would have to watch TV in the living room so that he could sleep. But he is still sober today, and we're still very good friends. So we can coexist together very well. Anyways, I'm going to introduce the first speaker. Her name's Ashley Wilson. Her clean date is 6/14/19. She works in Prescott, Arizona. Her first Oxford house that she lived in was Oxford House Sakani. Killed it. And she's been employed with Oxford House since June 2020. So give it up for Ashley.
Good morning, family. How are we doing today? My name is Ashley Wilson. I am a woman in long-term recovery. What that means for me is I haven't felt the need to pick up a drink or a drug since June 14th of 2019. Like Zach said, I work in Prescott, Arizona. We are where's my Prescott people at? There we go. So how many of you are at your first World Convention today? That's incredible. This is my first World Convention myself. Experiencing yesterday, being in that first general session and through all of the panels with all of you guys, being able to experience this movement of recovery with all of my fellow alcoholics and addicts has been super incredible. You know, I heard it was going to be an incredible experience, but being able to just be here and do this with you guys, I'm honored. All right, so you guys see on the screen, we've got millennials are born between 1981 and 96. How many millennials do we have here today? Do we have any Generation Z? Okay, there we go. So when I heard that I was speaking on this panel, I was like, you know, I sat on it for a couple of days. I wasn't sure what exactly I was supposed to talk about, but after having a conversation with my panelists here, we decided that the best way to get through to you guys is to kind of share our experience. So I was born in 1990, which makes me a millennial. Growing up as a millennial was a little bit unique. I feel like we were the last generation to kind of have that face-to-face experience with as children, right? So we were playing outside until the street lights came on. The most online communication that we had when we were younger was dial-up after school and AIM. And we kind of watched technology evolve from that, right? So we've been a part of this social media movement, but we also had the opportunity to get that face-to-face interaction that I think Generation Z kind of lacked a little bit. Drugs were also very accessible to us, right? I know for me, I grew up with a lot of pressure to be pretty enough, smart enough, successful enough, and that was never really achievable for me. So I quickly, very young, probably 12, 13, turned to drugs. By the time I picked up heroin, I think it was probably in my early 20s when I picked up heroin. But even back then, like, heroin was heroin. It wasn't laced with fentanyl. Meth was meth. It wasn't laced with anything. And my friends weren't dying like they are now. Generation Z came next. So my sister is a part of Generation Z. So I kind of got to watch her and the differences that we had for both of us growing up. She grew up with a tablet in her hand. She had a Facebook by the time she was 10? They had a different level of peer pressure. How many likes you got on your social media posts. They had access to so much, which I think can be very overwhelming. And even more so than my generation, Generation Z had picked up drugs and alcohol a lot earlier, at least in my experience. Fentanyl is a new monster that we're all facing. You see so many people now where fentanyl is their drug of choice, which is just mind-blowing. And people are dying all of the time. How many of you know somebody who's died from an overdose? How many of you know somebody who died within the last month of an overdose? Seems like they're dropping every week, and that's something that I think is unique to to Millennial and Generation Z, is that we are all in recovery, but we're still dealing with this grief that's almost unfathomable. Luckily, with over 3,000 Oxford houses, we are meeting the need for this new epidemic, which is just incredible to me. Like in my state of Arizona, when I moved into the Prescott Valley area, we had 4 houses. We now have 15. So. And that's thanks to so much hard work from some incredible people. And I am so blessed to be a part of that. But just to see that expansion on kind of a smaller scale in my state, Arizona is a very new state. We're already up to over 50 houses. I think that it's important that this great expansion is happening with this fentanyl epidemic. Safe, stable recovery housing is becoming more accessible. And we heard in panels yesterday how important that is to recovery. So there's some things that we face when moving into Oxford houses and seeing kind of a generation gap, right? We have a responsibility to every addict or alcoholic who walks in those doors to give them the same shot that you had when you walked in. Tradition 1 states that every Oxford house has its primary goal, the provision of housing to the alcoholic or addict who wants to stop and stay stopped. There you go. So age gaps in Oxford House. How many of you have heard that judgment placed on the Generation Z, that they're too young? Or Generation X, that they're kind of stuck in their ways, they're stubborn? How many of you have young houses or old houses in your areas? Now that's kind of, I see it all of the time too. I think it's natural for us to want to separate and, keep as like-minded people around you, but we are all addicts and alcoholics, so we have a lot to learn from each other. So if we try and keep that kind of a melting pot in our houses, like Zach touched on, like there's a lot of stuff that I've learned from older women in my houses. They've got that mom vibe to them, right? And the younger ones too. The younger ones bring a whole different perspective into a house. So I think that it's very important that we don't discriminate against them. Depending on what generation you're in, don't discriminate against the younger or older generations. The reality is that we all suffer from the same disease. So in closing, something that I appreciate about what recovery looks like for Millennials and Generation Z in Oxford House is that we recover out loud. That anonymity is not as apparent for us. Our recovery movement is loud. We post milestones on Facebook. We reach out for support. We wear big, bright T-shirts. We attend world conventions with over, 1,500 people at them. Celebrating that recovery is possible so loudly with all of you this weekend has been an incredible experience. I want to thank you guys for having me. I'm very honored. Have a good rest of your time.
You guys are a pretty good crowd for 8:15 in the morning. All right, guys. The next panelist I'm gonna introduce is Joshua Ogle. Joshua Ogle is a person in long-term recovery that has not felt it necessary to take a drink or use a drug since February 8th, 2018. He moved into Oxford House Riverwood in Lexington, Kentucky on January 21st, 2019. He quickly became involved and became the housing service representative of his house and the reentry chair for the chapter. After 4 months, he was offered a position as an outreach worker in Indianapolis, Indiana. He resigned after 2 months to focus on growing in his recovery, but continued to stay involved. In October of 2019, he became the first ever Indiana State Association chairperson. In October of 2020, he was offered a job once again as an outreach worker for Indianapolis, Indiana, and ran with it. Josh is in training to be the senior outreach coordinator for the state of Indiana and is enrolled in college with a major in social work. Y'all give it up for Josh.
What's up, guys? My name is Josh. I'm a person in long-term recovery, and what that means to me is I haven't felt it necessary to take a drink or use a drug since February 8th of 2018. So when I first moved into an Oxford house in Lexington, Kentucky, I moved in at 27 years old. I had 11 and a half months of sobriety. And I moved into a house with people who were 40 years old and alcoholics. Me being a heroin addict, I didn't think that I was going to be able to relate to them very well. Not only were they alcoholics, they were straight. I am not. And, you know, I feel like in being a gay man in recovery, as a millennial, something else that we face in our community is being HIV positive, which I am. And that was real hard for me to talk about when I first moved into an Oxford house, being as young as I am, being in a house with guys who are 40 years old who back when they were young, they weren't really educated on HIV, and like it was a death sentence at that point in time. Today it is not. I'm proud to say that I'm HIV positive and I'm undetectable. So it like when I first moved into Oxford House and I'm with these older guys, like, you know, it was weird at first, because like if I don't know you, I'm kind of socially awkward, right? Like I'm like, hey, how you doing? But then like once I get to know you, I'm like, you probably are going to be like, Josh, you need to chill out. And you know, after I took the time to get to know them, because like not only do we have a stigma on us being millennials, like they have a stigma on them being older too, right? So like we just need to put these stigmas aside and like learn to coexist with each other and like learn to get to know each other for who we are and not based on our generation. So like when I first moved into an Oxford house and I realized like I had to do my own laundry, I had to do my own dishes, I'm like, what? Is this real life right now? So like growing up, my mom like catered to me, right? Like I was spoiled. And I feel like my generation sees a lot of that. You know, I have these younger residents moving in and like they don't even want to work, much less do their own laundry. And you know, Oxford House taught me how to be a fully self-supporting adult, you know, like how to do my own laundry, how to pay my EES on time, how to do my own dishes, which, whew, that one was rough. And you know, it was good times though, you know, like today, like if I see somebody in the kitchen and like they leave that dish in the sink, I'm like giving them the death stare. I'm like, hey, You gonna do that dish? But so I was looking up some stuff last night to talk about today, and I read this study, and it said in 2019, a study showed that the age group of 18 to 34-year-olds drug death increased by 400% between 1999 and 2017. If that don't say it all right there, I don't know what does. In 1999 and 2017. And look at where millennials fall, 1981 and 1996. Like that's where 1999 and 2017, oops. That's where, those are the ages where we all became old enough and in the scene enough to start partying, right? Like I started partying in 2008. It's real out there, man. I've lost so many friends to this disease, especially being a heroin addict. People that I used to run with, people that I used to go to school with, people that I was in Oxford House with, people that I was in treatment with. A lot of them are gone. I'll never forget the first day that I was in treatment. They came up to me and they took us all on like a tour of the detox unit, where they all had all the ID badges of people that had died. And it took up the entire wall. And I just remember thinking, I do not want my ID up there. And that hit home. And it's time for you guys to decide what statistic do you want to be, because at the end of the day, that's what we are. As addicts and alcoholics, we're statistics. We're either going to be the statistic that makes it or the statistic that doesn't. Only you can decide which one you want to be. I know that I'm supposed to talk for like 20 minutes, but I don't really know what else to say. So, yeah, figure out what statistic you want to be. That's all I got.
All right, guys. So I think that, and Ashley kind of touched on it, and I know Kelly will, but one of the things that our generation, in my generation, the millennials, and then it has been passed on to Generation Z, is that we've dealt with the opioid epidemic. And that's not something that our previous generations have dealt with. Older generations of Oxford House members came in as mainly alcoholics. I'm sure there was a lot of, crack cocaine addicts and things like that. Oh, yeah. But, it's been a recent thing in the past decade that we're having to put Narcan in our houses. Who's had a member overdose in your Oxford house? Isn't that crazy? Like, when you think about it, and we're all here together from different states and different places. I've, as an outreach worker, I've had, I want to say 3 fatal overdoses in my areas in the last year in houses. One other of someone that was not currently in the house. And that's just not something that other generations had to deal with. And I've seen it, and I've been, I've worked with residents that, I'm like teaching an older man how to use Narcan and what it does and what it is. And he's like, I don't really care to learn. And I was like, well, if you want to live here, you have to. You may need to save someone's life. And I remember specifically this particular gentleman. I taught him at the house meeting he was accepted at on how to use Narcan. I want to say a month later he had to use it, and he did successfully. And it's just it's a different thing. I personally feel like I had slight PTSD just from the people I lost before I got here. Before I got to recovery, I watched people slip away in front of me. And that's just, I've dealt with a lot of death, and, they tell you, when you get to the 12-step programs that you need to keep a black suit or whatever. But I didn't realize, if I was going to continue a job in recovery, what it would look like to work with, to go to so many funerals and to learn to meet these people in recovery and learn to love them and just lose them. I think that's the biggest problem our generation has faced, thanks to Big Pharma. Okay, I'm going to introduce our last speaker. Her name is Kelly Rimby. She's an alumni of Chelan, Oxford House in Wenatchee, Washington. She's a former voting alumni of Washington State Association. She has been working for Oxford House as an outreach worker since February 2019 in Central Washington. Give it up for Kelly.
All right. Good morning, family. Good morning. I'm Kelly, and I'm an addict. Hi. I'm going to try it the professional way. I am a woman in long-term recovery, and what that means to me is I have not had the need to use a drink or a drug since November 16th of 2015. I am super nervous. I'm like shaking right now. This is my PowerPoint I made to try to keep me on track here because this is my first time speaking. Yay! So I am a millennial. I was born in 1990. And Generation Z, obviously, the younger generation. I have a few residents in this generation and a few really close friends in this generation as well. So I'll try to touch on some of that. So a little about my experience in recovery. So I was 24 in Spokane County Jail, and I turned 25 in there. Got moved up to the laundry pod on my birthday. So exciting. So shortly after that stay, I decided to get clean. And I got into Oxford House at 25 and found the Rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. So I want to talk a little bit about old timers in recovery when I came in. I heard the expression, "I've probably spilt more drugs than you've done." I was like, probably, could be, I don't know. But that doesn't mean I wasn't at my bottom and I didn't have to go any deeper and I didn't need to do any more research. And looking at the similarities, not the differences, was something I had to constantly remind myself of. This was my first time getting clean and trying recovery, and something that I always told myself when I saw people go back out is that we are the same. They are an addict, I am an addict, and if it didn't work for them trying something a different way, it's probably not gonna work for me. I didn't know after getting out of treatment if I was ready to stop forever or not pick up weed or alcohol. Thank God for Oxford House, because I had to stay there. I had nowhere else to go, and I knew I couldn't lose that place to live. So I was not going to drink or smoke weed. So that helped me stay completely abstinent, and I'm very grateful for that today. When I first came in, I go, I'm just going to give this a year. I'm going to get that statistic of 87% chance of less of relapse, and I did it. A little bit about growing up. I had to really figure out how to learn some accountability when I first got into Oxford House. Growing up, my mom really undermined authority. Every time I got in trouble, it was like, oh, they're just picking on you, make an example of you, how dare they? So it was really hard for me to learn that I was the problem and it wasn't everybody else. So with that became a behavior contracts, I was on them. What. I feel like all good success stories were on a behavior contract at one point in time. I think my first one was for gossiping. I was friends with all the guys' houses, so I'd get all the tea and then come back and be talking all the things, and they're like, "You can't be doing that. You can't be doing that." So getting involved in Oxford House, so I started out doing fundraising and with bingos and all that fun stuff. I really got more involved after I moved out, honestly, becoming a voting alumni on the state association and doing more things with the state other than just in my area. When I moved out with my now husband, and when we moved out, we tried to keep the Oxford principles, and we tried to go to 2 meetings a week and clean the house like we were in a house. So Oxford really taught me how to live. And a little bit about where I'm at. I'm in Wenatchee, Washington. So I know you all know Washington's a huge state of houses. We only had 5 houses in Little Wenatchee. It's in central Washington, so we're not in Spokane, we're not in Seattle. There's only 5 houses, and we've grown that to about 12 now. So I have up here the opioid epidemic, my experience with this. The era of OCs, Oxycontin. So in 2009 is when I graduated high school, and I was already addicted to Oxycontin by age 19. You could get those everywhere. They were really easy to come by. People had full prescriptions. I don't know how, but they did. So that was really what I grew up with. So those went away shortly after that. A couple years later, you were, paying $1 a milligram or whatever it could be, $80 a pill, and you just couldn't get them anymore. So that's when me and my fellow addicts at that time all went to heroin. Easier to get and cheaper. I was like, why haven't we been doing this the whole time? What were we doing? Spending all that money. And so I actually overdosed myself in 2013. I was in an apartment with 2 people I didn't know, and I'm so thankful that they called the ambulance and I received Narcan, because I still today, I know one of their names, so I'm really thankful for that. And with Narcan, if you've ever been Narcan, that's a really weird experience. You wake up and it's very disorienting. So I'll go skip down to Narcan. So Narcan's in all our houses now, at least in Washington State, and I think most across the country, which is so awesome. So we don't have to have anyone die, hopefully. I know things still happen. In central Washington, and I think some other areas in Washington, they're actually working on getting some Narcan vending machines, which is pretty sweet. I can't wait to see those up and running. I lost my first friend, an opioid overdose, in my sophomore year of high school. So it started early, and it happens now all the time. Friends I went to high school with, members of Oxford Houses, members of AA and NA, and I just hope that we don't have to lose many more with all the tools we have today. And fentanyl. So I saw the craziest thing about 2 years back. I got an application from somebody who was born in 1998. And you see all sorts of things on those applications about drugs used addictively. You have people that list everything, or they just put everything, or things like that. And all this kid's application said was fentanyl. I was like, he's just trying to die. Like, that's it? Like, just fentanyl, not like heroin. And so you get fentanyl sometimes, but that is his drug of choice. And it was really shocking to me. So a little bit about what recovery looks like today, and how it was for me coming in. Medically assisted treatment, medically assisted recovery, MAT-MAR, as we've all heard. So Suboxone was around before I got clean. I remember using it to get well. It wasn't in all the houses when I got clean, or like as big as it is now. But so I've really grown along with trying to accommodate the people that are on that and try to help that stigma that a lot of houses have with MAR and people being on Suboxone and other things like that. It's been kind of a lot of growing pains with that. A lot of houses didn't want to take people on it, or if they were on it, they wanted to be all over them and counting every strip they have, and that's just not okay. And so many people are on it now that if we didn't take people on it, I don't think we'd be filling our houses. This is the new today is. So we need to make sure our residents being responsible with their medications. And I wanted to talk about the monitoring a little bit more. We are not micromanaging their medications. We look for the behaviors. If their behaviors are off, that's when we ask them more about their medications. That's maybe when we can sit down and see where they're at with their prescription. We do not do that every time. If they are on a super high dose or even just on a normal dose, but they're sitting there nodding out, we can ask them to talk to their doctors though about a different prescription. But we got to remember, we are not their doctors. We don't know better than the doctors, even though sometimes we think we do. So ageism in houses. This is my two buddies here, Rocky and Aaron. So the healthiest houses to me are the ones with the biggest age ranges, because we can all really learn a lot from each other. I have some very young newcomers in houses. Don't know how to make a bed, don't know how to do dishes, don't know how to get a job, and we really need those older people to help them out. And those older people, like you've heard, need help with their phones and the TV and things like that. Like, what's a Roku? So I wanted to talk about the We Are Not Anonymous movement. As we all know, we are an anonymous group still, but there's not really much anonymity. We wear recovery loud and proud, and we are definitely beating the stigma. So this picture makes me laugh. My friend posted it and he blurred out the people in the back because we were at an NA event. And let's just face it, everything is out there now. And so it was a cute attempt, but it's everything's posted nowadays. We use it also for other things to promote recovery events. I use it to fill vacancies. Every time I open a new house, we make a little flyer we put out there and hope that we get some phone calls, get some of those spots filled. We use it for fundraising whenever we have a bingo or a car wash. We're posting it everywhere, getting people to share it. In Facebook groups, there's a Can't Go Back page that some of our friends started that people use to get support. They post how they're doing and they get people on there helping them out, and I think it's really cool. Or when they're struggling, when they're trying to get back at it, I see sometimes it's got 7 days, okay, now it's 8 days, and they keep you updated every day. We also have chapter pages, so we can communicate with our members a little easier, and even 12-step meetings on Zoom with the pandemic. So a lot of things on social media. Also Facebook Live, your Facebook Live at anonymous events, so that's kind of funny. Next, I just have a little slide of how we use social media to show our recovery. Let's see if it's there we go. So with all the talk of the opioid epidemic, some of the people in Central Washington came up with this, and let's all make recovery the epidemic.
Yeah. Kelly got me choked up. That was pretty good. All right, guys. We have about 15 minutes left. How about we open it up for some questions? Anybody got any questions?
Hi, my name is Matt. I'm a man in long-term recovery, and I'm from the baby boomer. Woo! You know. Well, anyway, I just wanted to ask you a question. So, why is it that you guys are so down on us baby boomers, man? You know. No, really. I do appreciate you guys, and you guys really did a good panel here. I've been in an Oxford house since 2013, and I came from a prison, and you know, I was welcomed into Oxford houses, and I do live in an Oxford house with you know, various amounts of ages and stuff, and that's what truly does make an Oxford house strong and everything, and we learn. So are you guys gonna, the question I was gonna ask you was, let's see here. So are you guys gonna go ahead and welcome more older people, you know, in the Oxford houses, so they can actually help the Oxford houses? Because I've been moving from Oxford house to Oxford house, trying to make sure that they do. We do the same thing as help your generation Z and X, you know, learn from us as a long-term recovering addicts also.
Thanks for helping us with our problems, too.
Yes, and social media. The question was, are you because our generation, you know, older generation, pretty much been pushed out of the houses, you know, and I feel that's kind of hard because a lot of the Generation Z and X have pretty much downplayed who we are as recovering addicts, you know, and I'm one of the few in an Oxford house that is turning 60 in November, and you know, and I support Oxford House, and I have since 2013. So I believe that maybe instead of you guys, you know, downplaying, we're older, not old, you know. So anyway.
Getting pushed out of the houses?
Yes.
Like voted out?
Yes. On the smallest things as disruptive behavior.
Well, I think that before that
yeah.
happens, you need to call your chapter and get some chapter members there to help the vote. Yeah, ask for help. That's what I
Okay.
would say, 'cause that's not right.
All right. Thank you.
Hi guys, thank you for your speeches today. I got something out of all of them. I've found that even though I'm actually a millennial, which I didn't realize, I feel like I'm old already. You know, some of these kids that are coming in, I'm just looking at them like, what is going on with you, you know? And there's that saying of in one ear, out the other. And I feel like that's actually more credit than I get. Like I see a force field over those ears, and I'm talking, it's hitting the force field and falling, hitting the table, you know? So I feel like with some of the younger people, maybe because, I don't know, it's not fair to stereotype, but maybe because they haven't gone through enough, sometimes it seems like they're not ready. I have a trouble getting them to cultivate an attitude of gratitude, you know? Nothing is that great for them, you know? Like the gentleman was talking about, he had to come in and learn how to do dishes, and I find that to be a problem a lot. They don't want to take care of their own stuff, and I can't get them to have gratitude about it. So, I mean, it's not for all of them, but that's a generalization that seems to hold true in my experience. Can you guys speak to if you've had any troubles with that same kind of thing, and if you've had any successes getting anybody to, you know, change out of that?
So I've experienced personally, like, younger people coming in, definitely Gen Z, coming in and not being grateful, not being ready. But you can never diminish the power of planting a seed. So when someone sees like a person in recovery living happily, and they know that they are, were doing the same drugs they were, and that sticks with them. And so I've seen members come in, not do so well, leave with a balance, get voted out, relapse, and then come back and pull it together. So you have to remember that the way you portray yourself and the way you carry yourself, people pick up on that, and it's infectious. So, but yes, sometimes the younger generation is ungrateful and more spoiled, and things like that, and their parents aren't done enabling them, and their parents don't understand what things like Al-Anon and things like that, and so they're still paying for their rent and willing to pay their deposit at a new house when they mess up and things like that, and that's just some of the stuff I've dealt with.
All right, thank you.
Hello, my name is Andrew, the state of Oregon. I'm on the state association, and what I've been dealing with, personal experience, is younger generations coming into a house and then getting some more of their friends into the house, voted in, and all of a sudden they're clicking up, and that clicking up is circumventing the democratic process. And how do I go about, instilling them that there's a certain model to be adhered to? Because like this gentleman before me said, when I'm talking about that, it's falling on deaf ears, because all of a sudden, when I say the collective voice of the house is this group of people here that is all of a sudden steering it to what they want. And I'm finding that to be a real issue. So if anybody's had experience with that, I'd appreciate the suggestions.
So we've got a few houses in Indiana that if they were friends in treatment and they know that on the interview, they'll suggest that they go to another house, or if they're accepted into the house, they just tell them that they definitely cannot be roommates. And then, if it starts to get to where there's so many of them, we asked Chapter to come in and do some training and just be there for a couple weeks just to educate them on the motto and let them know that we're zero tolerance and we will not co-sign their bull crap.
Hello, my name is Jake and I'm from Texas. So I was curious about, you had mentioned that we do not focus on counting strips and we focus more on behaviors. Is that something, we're kind of confused. I've heard different things from different people. Do we not focus on pill counts? It's specifically, or on behaviors only, or do we, how does that work?
I would definitely talk more to your outreach worker about that. Okay. And also, because I know some areas, I don't know what could be different. And also I know house votes are house votes as well, and how you guys want to handle that. But it is somewhat, it's discriminatory to only count people on MAT therapies prescriptions, and not everyone else is at every house meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, how are you doing? Can you hear me? Okay. So my name is Erica. I'm from Kansas. So my question is, what should you do with a Generation Z person that comes in and you and you want to give them the opportunity that you never had, but they again don't know how to make their own bed, keep a clean room, want to run the streets and make excuses for each task. You kind of give them what would be the options, like extend new member, behavior contract, buddy system. We're all in our own recovery with our own lives, but how much time or energy should you put in an individual?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the last part of it real quick?
I said we're all in our own recovery with our own lives, but how much time or energy should you put in the new individual?
I think that the most important thing, we run into that a lot, when you get a younger person, she just comes in and we just talked about it before, but I think that the best thing is to have open communication with the whole house about it. Lead by example. Set a consistent standard for everybody in the house. You know, if you want to do room checks a couple times a week, make sure everybody has their beds made so that it's a consistent standard for everybody to go by. And like Zach said, planting that seed, you know, having some quality time together, going to meetings together, going out to lunch, and just kind of planting that seed so that that newcomer doesn't want to leave the Oxford house, that they want to set that standard for themselves. I think that that's the best thing you can do. And if it goes so far that you know, a behavior contract is necessary, we've gone that route too.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Clifton. I really don't have a question, but more of a comment. You know, 60 to 18, it doesn't really matter what age you are. You know, if you today in this room, if you go back to your house and you're a leader consistently, my house ranges from literally 18 to, you know, 60. You're just consistently a leader, man, and bring unity together and open communication, man. Your house will flourish, man. Everybody gets along, and it's no longer a gap between generations. It's more like a family. You know, we got Papa and we got baby boy over here.
So I'm Jason. I'm from Spokane, Washington. I turned 49 today. Thank you, everybody who sang. So I came to this group thinking that you guys are going to tell us what the differences were. And the more I listened to you and the more I talked, there is no difference. I did not believe that the amount of death that you guys have seen, and I've been to probably more funerals than graduations, definitely. The more I sat and I thought that there is no difference, and I'm waiting for this difference, and there just isn't one. We're addicts and alcoholics. As long as we are living by the principles set forth for us through Oxford, we can achieve anything. And so, like the other gentleman, I really didn't have a question, but I just, when Matt here said that there was like they were pushing them out, that I think that might not be a age thing. I think that's just a, you know, your buddy thing. And so because I've seen it the other way, where you got a couple old guys don't want to deal with the little guys, and so they kind of, well, we're just gonna kind of vote our way to get this, you know, get this situation the way that we want it, which is not how Oxford is set up. And I would advise everybody to utilize your chapter chairs, your co-chairs, your state reps. That's what they're there for. And so thank you for coming.
Chris, alcoholic addict. I was born in 1996, and I'm currently Kansas State vice chair. And what I'm dealing a lot with my chapter right now is basically the stigma. You know, I live in Chapter 6, which is in Dodge City, the Bible Belt. And I get the stigma a lot of, you're too young, you shouldn't be in recovery, you don't even belong in an Oxford house, all this other stuff. And I have seen multiple people, and I'm not from Dodge City, so, you know, the stigma of the young guys with the ears blocked, you know, it's kind of like that. It's a little annoying, you know, because I see how people approach them. It's about all the approach and stuff. So what kind of advice could you give to me to go back and tell the younger guys that are still trying to come into an Oxford house but feel a little discredited because they don't feel like they're given the right opportunity or the right chance?
I think that the best advice that you can give to the people back home who are, if I'm understanding right, who are younger in in age, and they're worried about the stigma that might be attached to them, like we talked about, they're not being taken seriously. Just continue to work a strong recovery program. Are they worried that they won't get accepted into an Oxford House, or they're worried about?
No, the thing is they get accepted, but I don't know if you guys have ever been to Kansas. We're stuck in our ways, you know.
Yeah.
It's change is a scary thing for everybody, especially when, you know, I feel like when a younger generation gets into a leadership position, then people just kind of question everything about it, you know. So with them coming in, they feel like like in this certain thing, and they feel like they're not able to grow, and that, you know, there's certain rules they got to follow, and then they feel like the old timers enforce them, you know, like not just old timers, just like people that have been in Oxford longer. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I have been to Kansas before, and I know that the recovery community and the Oxford House community out there is super strong. So my advice would be to, you know, buddy up with somebody like yourself, you know, who's come to World Convention and gained all this knowledge and is of service in your chapter. Try and buddy up with them, learn from them, and be strong in their recovery program, and just hit the ground running as much as they're comfortable with.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
What's up? I'm Rob. I have alcoholism. So I think we're all familiar with memes and how they can be used both for humor and to cut deep into people. And I know Gen Z kind of has more of a proclivity for making memes about other people. So how should we, as both members, alumni, and even outreach, how should we navigate someone making memes about other members in their chapter or in their area to, you know, make fun of others, or to like make fun of someone relapsing or something?
Oh, wow. I feel uniquely qualified for this. While I'm not Gen Z, I am a king meme maker.
As am I.
Yeah. So I think that, you know, like really ill memes that, you know, we know what distasteful ones are, ones that hurt people, ones that make fun of a relapse. And, you know, that's not going to be tolerated in Oxford House, and it shouldn't. You know what I mean? If a house decides that a meme is just bullying, then the person that made it, you know, needs to be held accountable as if they bullied any other kind of way. You know, that kind of stuff. I mean, we just can't tolerate it to an extent. You know, I roast my friends that I love, and it's an endearing roast. So it has to be decided on what that is and what that looks like. You know what I mean? And that's a situational thing. But to the gentleman earlier that was just up, I think sometimes with the older generation, respect is earned. And I think that if you're a younger member coming in and you're having a hard time, I feel like if your actions will speak louder than your words, and if you put the right foot in front of the other, and you kind of stick with the winners, as they say, older Oxford House members and seasoned Oxford House members will begin to respect you, no matter your age.
Thank you. I'll show you some memes later.
About the thing, if you're intentionally harming somebody, that shows you're not working a program. That's not what we do today. Working a program is a requirement of living in an Oxford House, so I would consider it disruptive behavior. Absolutely, no doubt about it.
Sorry, crippling social anxiety. I'm James. I'm from San Antonio. So just from gathering what a lot of people's comments are, it's kind of brought me to the question that I really did want to ask, which is, and it's for all four of you. But real quick, thank y'all all for doing this. I got a lot from every single one of y'all. What has been like in your experiences in Oxford, what's been y'all's biggest challenge as far as recognizing, because I come from a house where it is a large age gap, which I've loved about that, and I adamantly sought out going out of treatment and looking for a home that a lot of my fellows that were in treatment with me weren't going to, just because I enjoyed the idea that everybody was instilling in us that, the whole purpose of it is fellowship. The whole purpose of recovery is to make sure that you expand your circle and know that you're going to meet new people and keep going forward with that. So, I also want to say appreciate all that point being made earlier too. But what's been the biggest challenge you guys have recognized in your houses that you've been through, as far as like recognizing when someone's personalities, I guess, are being more pushed to the forefront rather than respecting principles, and how have you guys dealt with that in your houses as well?
Up until about 2 weeks ago, I lived inside of a house, and I lived there for about 7 months in that particular house. And there was a younger guy there that I was putting his personalities before principles, and like it was affecting my serenity. And like I had to step back and take a look at myself and like see why I was why I was letting it get to me. Like I was not accepting him for who he was, and I had to look at my side in that. So like I feel like if you see that somebody in your house is putting personalities before principles, maybe have a talk with them and tell them to 10-step it. Tell them to 4-step it, and take a look at their side of the street. Why are they allowing themselves to do that when that's not what we do?
This one's not meme related. So one thing I've noticed with a lot of younger guys and women that come into our houses, especially in like Arizona, is like there's quite a few people who just don't want to work either a 12-step program or any program at all. They think they can just white knuckle it. And like I know in interviews that I've conducted, it's like, are you willing to work on yourself, go to 12-step meetings, get a sponsor, like work the steps, stuff like that? And they all say yes, and then they go back on it. And I've always had a tough time getting the rest of the house to, vote with me on the fact that like, hey, like they agreed to do this and now they're not doing it. Like we need to hold them accountable, either put them on a behavior contract, have a talk with them, like talk about like if they're not willing to do that, then what are they willing to do? And like it's very tough to sometimes get everyone on board with holding people accountable to personal recovery inside the Oxford house.
Do you do recovery plans in your house?
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, they answer all the questions right in the interview, but what I would do is pull out their recovery plans, and because they didn't just answer yes to these interview questions, but they wrote it down themselves in their recovery plan. And you as a house can say, you said you wanted to get this done. This is goals you made, and you told us that you wanted to accomplish, and you haven't done anything on this list, so we need to look at that.
I'm Paula. I'm outreach in Chapel Hill, and I have a collegiate Oxford house. And so everybody in there is a millennial or a GC. And I just want to say that those that are really focused on recovery, they embrace the model. They are on it. They amaze me. Only problem I have is cleaning those rooms. But everything else, the business meeting, the chapter, the 12-step meetings, they're connected with the collegiate recovery community on campus. So just pray for them. But most of them that are really in recovery and are working on it, they embrace and love Oxford House. Okay?
Well, that's really inspiring. Actually, that is something I was hoping to talk about. My name is Trish Terhune. I'm from Seattle. I'm in Chapter 11. I'm the house president and also the chapter treasurer there. So I have a 15-year-old going on 16, and I also have a 13-year-old. And so my son is actually, it's a genetic, you know what I mean? And it's very sad to see that the struggle is so young. My question is, my son, I've been in 3 different Oxfords, and this is the my third year being in Oxford. Oxford saved my life each time. And my children love my Oxford house, and they love the people that I live with. And so they know what Oxford is and the benefit that Oxford can bring to the community and stuff like that. So my question is, how can I support my son if he needs this? And then also, how responsive were you, like when you were younger, to to think about going into an Oxford at such a young age? Because what I'm seeing is that there's just this struggle with the social aspect, and wanting to be. I mean, I can't imagine. I went into recovery, at 39, and so I can't imagine being a really, really young person trying to go against the grain and seek out recovery at such a young age. So how can we really support the younger people, even coming out of high school, that are battling with addiction at such a young age? And do we need to put more Oxfords in like college areas and things like that? Is that something that might be a good idea? I'm just trying to get ideas for the people coming in.
Me and my daughter both live in an Oxford house. When you leave, I'd like to talk.
Okay.
So, I was raised by a single mom.
Okay.
And there was really nothing that she could do other than just let me know that she was there. And then when she wasn't there is when I knew that it was getting real. That's when I was able to experience my lowest. And then that's when I went to prison. I think you just have to let it run its course and just pray for him.
Okay.
If you are a prayer, just let him know that you love him and that you're there for him. Don't enable him, and I think that's all you really can do. That's a hard situation, and I'm sorry that you're going through that.
Yeah.
I think that if I'm in Alcoholics Anonymous, that's the 12-step program I personally work. There's Al-Anon for that, and it is for the parent or the loved one of, and it's all about learning how to not enable and I think it's important if you're an addict or an alcoholic to also learn how to be the mother to an addict or an alcoholic, because it's not the same thing. It's important to learn that. I think that might be a really helpful resource for you. And then also, if your son has grown up around alcoholism and addiction, hearing from you or someone your age may not be as insightful as hearing from someone closer to his age that has recovered.
Right.
Okay. and maybe him speaking with someone like that as we relate to that experience may be helpful for him.
Okay, great. Thank you.
We probably could take one more question, and then we'll have to clear out for the next panel, guys.
Hi, I'm Jerry from Oxford Houses of Connecticut. Well, I have just a suggestion, Teen Challenge. That's the closest thing to Oxford House. They have them throughout Connecticut. I know they're in Arizona because I visited their headquarters there. It's a residential program, and they've met with lots of success, and they've graduated people into our Oxford houses.
Thank you, panel.